Well, I'm kind of a different breed because I grew up in Oklahoma, and my dad was in Republican politics. My dad was a Republican Party county chairman in Oklahoma, and my mother was a Democrat. That was an interesting family situation. And I got involved in politics, followed more on my dad's side, got involved in the Republican politics in Oklahoma. I went to high school in Oklahoma, and then I went to University of Kansas, and got into student government politics. I was the vice president of the student body at University of Kansas. Then I went to SMU, and while I was at SMU, I worked for a former state Republican senator named Ike Harris, and worked for him for a while. And then in 1978, I moved to Corpus Christi, Texas. And I chose Corpus Christi as I was in law school, and I got to Corpus Christi and enjoyed it. I wanted to live by the water. I'm a big fan of the coast. And I had never run really for any sort of public office. In 1987, I was approached to run for state representative. And long story short, I ran as a Democrat. And in the late 80s, Texas was primarily a Democrat state. And I served 8 years, and then I took a break from politics. I left 11 years, and then I came back and ran in 2008 as a Republican. And then I was elected, and I served today in my 12 years of service. So that's kind of the long distance. My children were 1 and 2 when I ran. And I will tell you, when you run for office, especially on a state, it's tough when you have little kids. My daughter, who's in your audience, was born while it was in session. And so I have 3 kids who I could hold in my political pictures. Today they can hold me in the political pictures. But that's kind of the role in politics, and it's always been in the State House. I've, as I said, run twice, and it's kind of an interesting perspective because I've been in both parties and have seen pretty much history where there's not a whole bunch of us left.
Right, your hiatus kind of straddled a pretty big shift. You came back to something very different than what you left. Talk a little bit about that. Was it just unbelievably different when you came back? I mean, you came back after the sea change of the early 2000s. Did you have to retool much? Was it?
Not really. I mean, what a lot of people don't realize as a state representative, and I tell everybody that's here, make sure that if you run for office, you know how much they pay. They pay you $600 a month minus taxes, and that's all you get, and you shouldn't pay us a penny more. And they tell you that it is a part-time job because we basically serve in the legislature. I live in Corpus Christi. So I move basically to Austin every 2 years for 140 days. And you basically leave your family and you live in Austin, and then you go back on the weekends. And I will tell you that from the political standpoint, it's an interesting perspective because you have to work it. Not only do you have to work for a living, you have to take care of your constituents, and you have to be in Austin. So the comparison with the 11 years, I had more hair the first time, I was better looking the first time. I will tell you that the rules, the procedures really hadn't changed that much. I probably got a little bit of an advantage coming back. And another thing for all of you that are listening, as a representative, seniority travels with you. So even though I'm not going to tell you that seniority sometimes matters in everything, it does in certain things. So my 8 years traveled with me, and so I get to accumulate that for 4 years. All that means is I get a good office and a parking spot is basically what you get. But, and it helps you in certain committee picks. But pretty much, you know, the people are great. You've had kind of a little bit different shift when I was in there the first time. I don't know if some of the audience is from West Texas, The West Texas population, South Texas population, where I am, have had different population shifts since the late 80s and the early 90s. And so people-wise, it was great. Procedure-wise, I didn't see much change. I think that probably the one thing that helped me, and I'll tell you all this, the best thing that probably helped me, the comparison between the two, is being out 11 years. And why is that good? Because I'm just like every one of you. You get to live under the laws that are passed, and you get a different perspective. And people talk to you and give you ideas. Like we have students here. And during that 11 years, I talked to a lot of students because my kids were in school. And so it gave me a good education. So when I came back in, I'd say I had a more broadened view of how we should operate government.
A little less in the bubble, maybe.
Probably.